So, April 25th, Thursday, regular kids talking about towards the end of The Outsiders. Not all the way towards the end of The Outsiders, but getting close. You want to go get a drink? Did you get points? Sure. Look at that. It's all of a sudden raining kids losing points at the beginning of this. So, Gia, you've spent 9 for the week. All right. And then Claire already knows where she is.
Bathroom.
All right. Then, let's see, to you guys at home talk. Ooh, real quick. With The Outsiders, there is a movie that goes along with it. It is a good movie. I recommend watching it. Here's the problem. I've seen the movie. I've read the book. I wrote my own test. I wrote the test knowing that kids just watch the movie. Which means if all you do is watch the movie, you're not going to do super well on my test. You'll still pass it. My guess is you'll probably get a C or a D. But I write it knowing that kids will end up watching it. And so we'll talk more about the test tomorrow, which will be coming up on Monday. But just giving you a heads up, if that's all you do, it's probably not going to be the most helpful thing to you. Neb.
Are you going to watch the movie
in a class? No, we don't have time. We do other things. You guys are more than welcome to. I highly recommend it. But no, I'm not taking time out to go do it. Those of you at home from there, blah, blah, bell work, which we just got done doing and you missed because I messed up. But Tyler reminded me because he was a somewhat good kid, although he was making fun of my other classes, but it still counts. And then from there, the bell work, pause, but you're basically going to go through and write sentences. We're going to try and figure out who it is you're describing. Now, there. Spoilers ahead. Oh, one, I found a meme that made me smile because it kind of connected the book. For some kids, as they were reading, and you got to the part about Johnny, you realized that you had emotions. It might have been the first time for you. And so I found a little meme about having emotions. It looks all old-timey and stuff like that. And then some kids who are brave because they're down to 7 points are trying to distract the other kids and see what happens if they lose points.
Oh, that's totally not me.
With our outsiders, things that we can help with. Let's see, my goal is we go through and talk. Let's see. Oh, the blah, 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 blah. You can put it away as long as you did the bell work. Yeah. Rumble. Did the bell work. So with the Rumble, what are our two sides that are fighting? Socias and greasers. Let's see. If the greasers win, what do the socias have to agree to? They cannot come into their territory. Like, you have to leave our territory. No more coming in here and beating up any of us. And like, okay. If the socias win, what happens?
They get to beat up everyone.
They get to keep. They're like, we get to keep hunting you like little squirrels. And they're like, we don't like that. They're like, well, then beat us in a fight. And so that becomes the two different sides. And then, where is our Rumble taking place?
The lot.
In the empty lot. They show up. They're like, we're going to show up at the empty lot because apparently it's that kind of a neighborhood. And both sides show up. And then we get to the part where they're trying to figure out who is going to start the Rumble. Because the more intimidating your person is, the better chance the other side won't even fight. Because if you have a scary enough person, and the other side's like, oh, we're not going to fight that person, then you automatically win by default. So the greasers send forward their scariest, almost like a gladiator, their scariest person. And who's the greaser scary? Now, in theory, it should be Dally. But the problem is, one,
Dally's dead.
No, he's not. Dally's in the hospital. Two,
Ned, have you been reading?
Dally's also not very scary unless you know him. Because Dally's kind of small and skinny. Dally's only scary and you're like, I'm going to fight you. And then he goes over and like kills a horse, rips off his leg, and then hits you with it. And you're like, you're crazy. So, not really intimidating. Derry looks like the Hulk. When he steps, he's like, Derry, smash! You're like, whoa. He's like all flexy, like, oh, I don't want to fight that guy. So they have Derry step up for the greasers, who's super intimidating. Who do the socias choose? Yeah, his name is Paul. Well, you don't have to know it, but his name is Paul, and he shows like the only part of the book he shows up in. He was a halfback on the football team that Derry played on. Turns out they were really good friends back in high school. And this is where we find out that apparently Derry used to almost be a soc. Hung out with the socias, went to the soc parties, was friends with a whole bunch of them. But then parents died, didn't go to college, they went to college, their paths go two separate directions. So the socias go, all right, if that's their scariest person, let's send forward his best friend to see if they're going to fight. So Paul steps up. Problem is, before the fight starts, neither one of them wants to fight. Because Paul doesn't want to throw the first punch. He's like, if I swing and miss, he's going to crush me. And then Darius like, I don't want to hurt you, little man. So they do like that little thing where you like face each other and you're like, we're just gonna go in circles around you. And they're circling back and forth until we have our guest star show up. And who's our guest star?
Daddy.
And that, because where was Dally?
Hospital.
Not dead. In the hospital. And that's when Dally comes running in. He's like, you can't have a fight without me. And he comes running in there. And everyone turns like, whoop. And Darius like, whoa. And turns over that direction. And all of a sudden, Paul is like, I'm a jerk. And jumps up and tries to punch Derry, which does not work out very well. He's like, little man, and then jumps on top of him. And that becomes the whole big fight between Derry and Paul. Rumble begins. Normally, Ponyboy gets a fight buddy anytime that he's going to be in a fight. And who's his normal fight buddy?
Johnny.
Because they're both like little midgets. It's like watching two chihuahuas attack like docs. Like, go little chihuahuas! But now all of a sudden his little midget friend is gone. So he has to have a new fight buddy. Who does he bring in as his new fight buddy? And that's for not too bad. Dally. Why does Dally count?
Because his arm's like messed up.
His arm's all janked up. He's not a midget like Ponyboy and Johnny, but he comes with like one arm still on a sling. He has like, I just got one good punching arm. Like, Team Cripple, high five. And they go out there and begin their whole fighting. Johnny would not do a whole lot of good in this fight. Why?
Paralyzed.
I mean, you could pick him up by the legs and like swing him around, which would be highly entertaining, but probably not all that effective. During the fight, something happens to Ponyboy. He gets knocked down to the ground. They say like at one point, I think one of the socials like was kicking him in the head or something like that. Nowadays, we know what that's called when you get hit in the head and like start thinking funny. If you play a sport, you can't play a sport then for a while because that's called a
Concussion.
good job. But at the time, they're like, I think you just got wonked in the noggin. And he's like, I'm not seeing things straight. Like, yep, that's a good noggin whopping. And so they don't realize it was an actual concussion. But they have the whole fight. Who wins the fight?
Greasers.
And that's where the greasers step up and they win. Like, yay, go us. At the end of the fight, there's a scene where the Brumley boys, which is like a group of greasers, go and beat up one of their own. One, why do they beat up their own?
Because he used a weapon.
He brought a weapon. He brought a pipe and brought it out. Well, why is his bringing a pipe a bad thing?
Because it's against the rules.
Because it was a skin rumble that said no weapons. Like, no one wants to get killed. I mean, you get stabbed with knives, right, Bob? Bob? Oh, never mind. And so because of that, hashtag too soon. And so because like it can only be a skin rumble, so Brumley Boy pulls out a pipe. But Mr. Brovicast, I didn't think greasers cared about rules. They don't. They're not beating him up because he broke the rules. They're beating him up because of what him having a pipe implies. Because if he brings a pipe, what does that mean he thinks about the other side?
Cheaters.
That they're better. And so if he thinks the other side is better, that means his side is weaker. And his friends go, listen. Well, I mean, not so many words because they're boys, and boys aren't good at expressing thoughts. But the idea being, if we bring a pipe, that means the socials are tougher than us. So you mean, by you having a pipe, that implies we're wussies. And I ain't no wussy. So they try to tell that to him by beating on him. Like, I'm not no wussy. I'm not good at expressing emotions. And they go and they beat up the other Brumley boy. And he's like, I'm sorry, I made poor choices. Gia?
So are the greasers like considered poor then since it's nice?
Very poor, yes. They actually
Wait,
mention
where
that.
are they living?
They don't. It's in Oklahoma, but they don't really come out and say much in the book. So yeah, it's just a poor place in Oklahoma.
Wait, so all their parents are there?
No.
Not all of them.
That part. At the end of the fight, Pony has to go to the hospital because of his concussion. No, not because of his. Oh, that is a good point. Tati, we're going to send you out to the hallway so you can go read. Because you being here is not going to do us any good anyway because you've not read any of this, so we'll send you out. So. No. I would have kept you here, but you kept turning around and messing with Naomi's stuff anyway, so we'll go ahead and boost you up and make things easier.
I wrote her a nice little note.
That's so adorable. Out you go. So Pony has to go to the hospital at the.
What
I have no idea. Oh, the end of the book, dears. Do. So yeah, choices, right?
That means I gotta read from 2
Good luck.
to 8.
Why does Ponyboy have to go to the hospital?
See how Johnny got
And that was the whole Johnny thing. Not because he got kicked in the head because of concussion. That's when Daddy's like, we gotta go to the hospital. He's like, for my head? He's like, no one cares about your head. He's like, we gotta go get Johnny. So they go to the hospital. Oh, on the way to the hospital, they do get pulled over by the police. Car pulls them over, and that's they have the really good acting skills. Because what does Dally tell Ponyboy to do?
Act like he's...
Yeah, he's like, act like you're hurt. Ponyboy goes, I'm kicked in the head, bleeding out of an ear. I don't have to act. He's like, oh, you're really good. And he's like, oh. And the policeman then takes him all the way to the hospital. They get to the hospital, go running inside, find Johnny, and then it gets real sad. Now, we're not going to read the part that some of you guys found out that your eyes are leaking. Mr. Brovicast, my eyes leaked during that part. Those are called emotions. It's okay. But with that scene, the last thing that Johnny says to Ponyboy is...
Stay gold.
Stay gold. What is that a reference to?
The poem.
Now my question is, knowing it's a reference to the poem, what is Johnny trying to tell him with his last words?
Stay enjoyable.
Not bad. The whole stay enjoyable, stay happy. Tyler? Not bad. And well, if all good things come to an end, then what is he trying to tell him?
Goodbye.
Bye. I'm dead. He's like, I'm dead.
Close. It's not his way of saying goodbye. It's more like his last bit of advice he's trying to pass along to him. So the idea, if everything is going to die and everything good that you love is going to disappear, stay good as long as you can. Hold on to your happiness. Because he's worried that he's going to turn out like, he's like, don't get old and angry and mean like that other guy. Because who do we know that's already old and angry and mean?
Dairy.
Not Dairy.
Someone that is
Dally.
really crazy.
Dally. Dally's old and angry and mean. Not for much longer. Ouch. But yes, you are correct. Once Johnny passes on, Dally does not take it well. Because then Dally like rage quits and like, I rage quit life! And like table flips and throws over the table and leaves, goes running out. The problem with him running out is that he ends up having to charge kids points while the teacher's still talking, which is really inappropriate. Don't worry, I got your points. It was not distracting at all, me still having several minutes left. Ooh, does that mean I get to be mean? One kid's now lost 10 points. And then to there, one kid's now lost 9 points. Me still talking, silly children. So once Dally takes off running and leaves from there, how did Ponyboy get to the hospital?
What? Who's calling?
No.
Dally.
With Dally. Dally took him to the hospital in the first place. When Dally takes off, Ponyboy is now abandoned at the hospital and now has no way to get home. So he's left at the hospital, watched his friend just die, is now still bleeding from the ear, suffering from a concussion, and has no way to get home. So he does what any good person would do, walks home. So goes out to the middle of the road and just sort of stumbles along and walks over in the middle of the street. And here's where the story has that moment where it takes a turn where you're like, it's going to get creepy. Random guy pulls up next to him and goes, hey, little boy, you want to get in my car and get a ride home? And Ponyboy goes, yes, I would. And he gets in the car and you're like, oh, this book's going to take a turn. But it turns out the guy was actually a nice guy. And he was like, hey, I'll take you home. Except, what does Ponyboy do in his car the whole way? Bleed. He's like, that was awful nice of you. The guy's like, what's wrong with your head? He's like, I don't know. What's going on? He's like, you're bleeding everywhere. And so he ends up bringing him back to his house. No, not bringing him back to the guy's house. That would be creepy. Bringing Ponyboy back to his own house. He was like, all right, go away, little head bleedy boy, and lets Ponyboy get out. Ponyboy then goes in to, what greasers are left? 2 bits left. Steve,
Soda Pop,
Dairy. Is that it?
Yeah.
So those are the only 4 left. Only 4 that are left in there. And that's when Ponyboy walks in. He's like, hey, bad news. Remember Johnny? They're like, what do you mean remember? He's like, he's not with us anymore. And they're like, oh, man. And so the bad news is apparently Johnny's dead. Before they can even really accept that, Dally calls. And Dally goes, hey, I've got more bad news. Because Dally really did not take the death well. So what did Dally do to celebrate? Robs a grocery store. What does he use to rob it?
A heater.
Now, what do we know about the heater?
It's
unloaded.
He used the, because that's going to play a big role in a moment, he used the unloaded heater to then rob the store. Tomorrow, we will get to that last and final scene. Those of you who desperately need points,